Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. Now in this Home Affairs Committee meeting, Tory MP Tim Loughton has one hell of a epic temper tantrum, well that's what it seemed like, with the Director of Passport, Citizenship and Civil Registration, Greig, about people who were working from home and one or two other situations. Now when it came to working from, what he's basically on, trying to find a link between the backlog of renewing passports and people working from home. Also, I think there's a little tad of Tory ideology in there. In other words, it's all right for the bodge to work from home, but not everybody else. And what I mean by Tele Performance, well, Tele Performance, they just didn't even bother to show up, take the medicine for being absolute shite. But what I'll do is I'll bid you farewell from on here, because this video goes on for long enough, and so you don't want to hear my prattling on after. But what I will say is, Tim Loughton's temperature rises so much, it sets off the fire alarm in Sheffield. It's hilariously funny. And all hell breaks loose. Cats chasing dogs, raining frogs, and everything, mass hysteria. I'm only kidding, but it is quite hilarious to watch, so I shall bid you farewell and enjoy.
Chair, Mr. Greig, you said that in a normal year, and I presume that's the sort of post-COVID, you'd anticipate doing around 7 million passport applications. Now you're anticipating doing 9.5, although that might be an overestimate. During the pandemic, how many passport applications were you processing? You said it was below 5 million, I think, for last year.
I think the figure for last year was about 4.8 million in total.
Okay, so you had a lot of people twiddling their thumbs during the pandemic, did you?
No, we didn't actually. We loaned staff to other parts of the Home Office, so we did loan staff to both the USS scheme and to some other teams, and I believe we loaned them to other government departments as well. So we made the best use we could of our staff. We also had, there was still a degree of demand, and we had our staff in the office from the start of the pandemic processing passports as well. So we loaned a few staff out, but obviously, as we've covered earlier, we also had to bring on additional staff to deal with this volume too.
Were any furloughed? Were any furloughed?
No.
And how many of your staff are working from home at the moment?
So a very small proportion of our staff are working from home at the moment. We are only allowing people to work from home where they can be as productive from home as they would be in the office. And because at the moment our focus is on, as I said, the more complex case types, the case types that run our paper-based AMS system, which is based in the office, we are maximising our numbers of staff in the office at the moment. So I can give the committee an exact number in writing, but I would imagine it's very few at the moment who are working full-time from home.
And was that the case 6 months ago?
So 6 months ago, there may have been more people working from home, because 6 months ago we were dealing, the proportion of work that we were doing on our digital system was higher, so that meant that people could work from home without it affecting their productivity. But just to be clear, our guiding principle is that we will only allow people to work from home. It has no impact on the production of passports.
Right, so people working from home 6 months ago, there was no problem about delivery of secure documents, enabling them to process those passports as quickly as if they were in a secure office, and you got productivity monitoring figures to prove that, yes?
So we have figures. So first of all, there was no problem with delivery of secure documents, because they would be scanned onto the system and they would be accessed remotely by the caseworker. Secondly, I don't think we have productivity figures actually which compare working from home to working in the office, but what we do have is productivity figures which show that the digital system which people work on from home is much, much more productive than the paper-based system which people work on in the office.
Right, so you've just said that there was no loss of productivity for people working from home, and it's a condition that there shouldn't be, but you don't have any figures showing that there was any difference in productivity for people working from home than there was in the office. So how can you make that claim?
Well, so productivity on the digital system has not changed, and my understanding has not differed whether people are in the office using the digital system or whether they are at home using the digital system.
Okay. You're now using language, my understanding is, which suggests to me that you cannot prove to this committee for sure that the productivity output rate of people you've got still working from home, of which there were more 6 months ago when this problem was really getting bad, was better or worse. Could you please go back and produce some figures for us, or come back to say, actually, we can't produce those figures, so therefore the claim that you've just made is not valid?
I'm sure you'd be used to it by now after how many, since 2019, you've had just Tory hot air from your leader, our Boz Jobson as PM, so you'd be able to spot bullshit then, won't you?
So I can do that, but I am very confident, having seen the way that our work has progressed over the last few years and months, and having seen our productivity, that working from home has not been an issue in our delivery.
Okay, well, as any other MP on this committee and our colleagues will attest, we don't see our staff very often these days because they're sitting in queues in the passport unit here, or they're permanently on the telephone. So the productivity of most MPs' offices has gone down extraordinarily, more than anything else I have ever known in 25 years in Parliament, because we are dealing with constituents who are desperate to get their passports, which they applied for 10 weeks or more before. Can I just, as the Chair said, this was not rocket science. You could see this coming, that there was a huge reduction in people applying for their passports. So why could you not, for example, have written, as various other public services do, to all those people whose passports were expiring within the next 6 months or something, to say, by the way, you might want to take this opportunity of a quiet period where nobody's going away to get in early for your passport application, because when we come out of COVID and when people are allowed to travel again, it's not rocket science to work out that quite a few people might want to travel and realise they haven't got an up-to-date passport. And you might have considered doing a special scheme that if you apply now, will add an extra 6 months to your passport or something like that as an incentive. One, why didn't you do that? And two, having an incentive scheme like that, would that have required legislation or permission from a minister? And if it did, was that requested?
So in answer to your first question, we did something a bit like that. So we texted over 5 million people to tell them that their passports were expiring in the next 6 months and to remind them that it was open to them to renew their passports. We didn't, I think, and this is a good point and one that we should reflect on whether we could do something different in the future. We didn't say things are quiet now, why don't you apply? But we did remind people. In terms of your questions about incentive, they do require fee regulations. So they would require something to be taken to a minister and to be presented to them. Now, again, to my knowledge, while we have considered incentives in various areas, we didn't specifically present an incentive for early submission of applications to ministers.
So in retrospect, do you think that might have been quite a good idea?
I think there's, we'll get onto this no doubt in a bit. I think there's lots of lessons that we can learn from the last 6 to 12 months, and I think in retrospect that probably would have been a good idea. We probably could have encouraged people earlier on to make those applications. Whether that would have helped or not, remains to be seen. But I think that is a valid point. And as I say, while we reminded people, what we didn't do was offer them some kind of incentive.
Can I just ask you about Tele Performance? Given, as the Chair has said, it's pretty disgraceful that a contractor who's being paid public money and whose service has been described by the Minister as unacceptable won't actually come in front of the committee today. Now, as I've said, and other members I'm sure will have similar experiences, spending an hour and a half on the phone for the MP's hotline, God knows what our constituents are having to spend, it's not working. Why is it not working? Was it going to take to make it work, which probably is more people? So how many people were taken on, and why has their productivity not gone up to the extent it needs to, so that our staff and our constituents are not spending an hour and a half on the phone, in some cases then to get cut off anyway?
So if I might just take the question about the MP's hotline first. So the MP's hotline is run by the Home Office and by the MP's account management team in the Home Office, and we have, from our teams in the past, since this issue started, we've diverted 15 non-frontline staff to help and support answering those calls. And as you know, we've also put
15. 15.
Right. Now, our performance on that line, I accept that it fluctuates due to demand. We've had, the average wait times have come down, the amount of calls being answered have come down. But I accept that there are some days where demand on that line means you do have to wait a long time to get an answer. And I accept that there are days at the post house as well where people have to queue a long time. We are, I think, have put additional resource on it this week. We have up to 30 people trained, and I think we will keep that under review as we move through the summer. And if we think that we're not, that we can provide a better service on that line, we will. There is a balance, obviously, between using staff to answer those kind of inquiries and using staff to do other things within the business, and we're trying to get that balance right. But my view at the moment is that we probably have sufficient staff trained, and on some days it works well, but we'll continue to review it.
Which days does it work well? Because I'd quite like to have prior notice of that, because I've not come across any day when it works well. And if you say to me, well, there's this fast track scheme to book an appointment, my office has daily been looking at that. There are no appointments available to stump up extra money for a service which you should be getting a standard anyway. You can't even do that. So this isn't a question of fluctuating, Mr. Greig. This is the 24-hour experience of somebody trying to get a passport at the moment. So how are Tele Performance being hauled over the coals for this? Are there penalty clauses on their contract? Are they being told if you don't improve your productivity, if you don't recruit the additional people, which is what's at the bottom of all of this, surely, you will lose the contract or there'll be serious fines? How are they going to be forced to improve their performance?
God, can you imagine if you were a couple of days away from a holiday and you're still trying to sort out your passport and you're stuck in a queue for an hour and a half and only be cut off? That must be infuriating. Oh, Jesus Christ.
So just a couple of things. You're absolutely right that we've had some very serious and honest conversations with Tele Performance since issues with their service at the beginning of March, and it did dip beyond it did dip to a really low level, and it's still not quite at service standard. So the first thing I would say, and again, this is difficult to say because so many people have had so many bad experiences with it, that the rate of call answering at Tele Performance is improving and has started to improve, and they're not far off on their main passport advice line, answering 80% of calls. There are.
It's an hour and a half now. Where's this improvement coming? Because we're not seeing it.
Well, so I'm not sure whether you're talking about the Tele Performance line or the MP's hotline. The Tele Performance line, certainly in the statistics that they provide us, and on our sampling of it recently, has shown an improvement and has shown more calls being answered more quickly. And they've done that by bringing in 800 new staff and also deploying some technical solutions which allow them to answer some questions in an automated way. So, we can provide all of that detail that Tele Performance have provided us with, but as I say,
we need that.
They are close to achieving that service standard. I appreciate that is hard for people to accept given experiences they've had historically with Tele Performance. But I would say though as well that further improvements are needed in their service. So they need to get better at answering the phone, and we also need to make sure that the advice that they give people when they answer the phone is better, and that what happens to people when they pass through the process is better. So look, I'm not in denial about the issues in Tele Performance, but I can only report what the performance monitoring shows us. And if people do have individual experiences that we can investigate to see if they are outside of that performance monitoring, or if there's something in that performance monitoring that we're missing, then we will do it, and we will continue to audit the service.
Look, I'll end there, but I think we need to see those productivity figures so we can make that judgment. You may not be in denial, but your head's on the block for this. You're running the passport service, and I would be bloody furious if one of my contractors was so hopeless in its service to MPs, where that's not going to go unnoticed. And if it's taking an hour and a half on the MP's hotline, we've not seen, and that's yesterday's experience. I spoke to my staff this morning to say, give me some of your experiences yesterday. That was happening yesterday. This isn't historic. This is still happening every day to every MP, to all our constituents. Thank you.
So just can I just say just a very small response to that. So the first is that we have been very strong with Tele Performance, and we have levied financial penalties against them. However, I think I should be honest and say that the MP's helpline is not them, it's us. We run the MP's helpline. So if we are still experiencing significant problems, and I think some of that might have been because unfortunately the surgery in PCH was not open yesterday. If we are still having problems there, we will ensure.
Well, whose fault's that? Whose fault's that? All the MPs have been in our office doing our job yesterday, and we were told that the passport special office wouldn't be open on Monday and Tuesday because of the weather. When we kicked up, they eventually found another room where they went, and that wasn't open all day as well.
So,
we're here all day. My staff were in yesterday, mostly dealing with passport queries from our constituents. So why are your staff so different from the rest of our staff?
See, the thing is, cardinal sin there, Thomas. You should have just taken your medicine, son. Not opened your mouth, try to defend yourself, because, yeah, look at the face. That's a face of someone saying, why did I just shut up? Shouldn't have said anything. He'd have just left it there. Now you're giving him another excuse to tear you to shreds again.
So, again, that service, a decision was made to suspend that service, I think particularly because of the expected temperatures in the room that the team were working in. And given some of I think that there were members of staff who, for various reasons, weren't able to work in that temperature. And what we tried to do was provide an alternative service during that.
Okay, can I just stop you there, because we we're in Portcullis House now. I mean, obviously today's not as hot, but yesterday people were working in Portcullis House all day. So I'm a bit surprised with that reason for not being able to provide a service. Sorry, could you just confirm, you said that you have levied penalties against the company?
We have levied financial penalties.
You have?
Financial penalties.
And how much have you levied?
Apologies, I've got an alarm in the background.
Sorry.
That's going to be a fire alarm in Sheffield.
Yes. Sorry, can you still hear us?
Passport office is on fire, unlike their
Apologies,
service.
That was not an attempt to curtail the session. I'm afraid an alarm went off downstairs, an alarm test. So, sorry, yes, we have levied financial penalties against Tele Performance.
And how much have you levied? What have they paid you?
I don't think I'm able to give the exact number at this stage. That's published through transparency data later in the year, I believe, but it is in the high hundreds of thousands.
The high hundreds of thousands?
What's the contract worth?
Okay, right, okay, thank you. I'm going to come to Carolyn Harris now.
Thank you.